Hi, I'm Sue Pitts with the Small Business Development Center in Iowa. We are in Smart Start, Lesson 2 with Concept Feasibility. So we'll just jump in. So in Concept Feasibility, this is what I call business planning. So people are like, I need to write a business plan. And, when we, in all of the centers in Iowa, work with small businesses, we really try to work with you on business planning before you sit down and write that business plan. There are certain times when a business will come in and they've gotten to that point that they've done their planning so that we can go right to business plan. But I think going through this process is very beneficial for any business. And I also think it's beneficial on a yearly basis once you start. So we will be going through building your business model, talking about a tool that a lot of people in business consulting work with, and it's called Business Canvas Model. And then I'm going to zero in a couple of those things. This is a 3-hour course that I could teach on just Business Canvas Model, but I'm going to talk about some of the most important things, and that's value proposition and testing the hypothesis of the business model. And then we're going to also talk a little bit about market research. The two concepts of doing a business model and market research kind of meld together. Not the same thing, but kind of have some similarities. So a business model describes the rationale of how an organization is going to create, deliver, and capture value and how they're going to make money. So the easiest description of what a business model, and if someone says, what's your model, it's how are you making money? But there's a lot of different components in there. So that's why we work with the Business Canvas Model. So I'll just jump to that. So sometimes, your business model is easy. I have a restaurant, people come in, they order food, and I make money. But certain circumstances in our economy, there's different revenues and there's different models. So you might have a restaurant that you serve food, and you might do a food truck business in the summer, and maybe you have deliveries and curbside pickup and things like that. So your model changes and gets a little bit more complicated. So the Business Canvas Model covers value propositions, and you can see this model up in front of you. So this is from strategizer.com. You can go to strategizer.com or even just Google Business Model Canvas, and you'll be able to get this model. I have a big one that I have in my office and we kind of go through, but a lot of people just take this Business Canvas Model and go through the process and just use sticky notes. So the different models on here, the different squares, they all kind of work together. The first one is value proposition. Value proposition is the problem that you're solving in its simplest form. So what problem are you solving? And then it connects right with customer segments. So what is the problem you're solving for who? And then it gets into customer relationships, which is about the selling process and the marketing process, that whole funnel, kind of that whole marketing funnel from how do I get people to know about my product to how do I deliver that product to them. And channels works very closely with the customer relationships because it's a physical part of actually delivering that product. And do you have a brick and mortar, the restaurant that people come in and that's your channel, or do you also have a channel of shipping out your brownies? So what are the different channels of doing all of the things that you need to do to keep and retain that customer? It gets into key activities, key resources, key partners, and cost structure, which is on the left side of the model. And those things are all things that are happening inside your business that you need to do to function. So basically, the most important thing that you're looking at in the business model canvas, and I could go on with just this for 2 hours, so this is something that I would definitely work with your counselor. And there's a lot of different material online, but it's an excellent way to start really delving into your business idea and figuring out exactly who that target market is. So the value proposition, digging a little deeper into it, is what value do you deliver to your customer? And keeping in mind you might have different customer segments, and that value proposition will probably change. So you might have a product that you deliver to consumers or to businesses. So that value proposition is probably different. It talks about delves into, what exact problem for that exact customer are you solving? And what benefits can your customers expect from you? And why you? And why not the competition? So you're really defining, not only your product, but how it fits into that customer segment. We talk a lot about value proposition, but I like to bring it down into what's your elevator pitch. So you get into an elevator, that old story, you have 30 seconds to tell someone what you do. That value proposition becomes that elevator pitch, and it can become so refined that it's, almost your tagline, and exactly how you explain how your business is. It becomes that very first sentence on your website. It becomes the very first sentence on your brochure. It becomes the culture in your office, and everyone knows that line. To give you some examples, some really good ones of big companies, they started small, they got big, but they have great value propositions. And these are, like, if you go to their website, like I said, it's right there. And why I keep mentioning the website is because that's kind of your 24/7 shop, your 24/7 live brochure. And people, if they hear about you, I guarantee you the very first place they're going to go is look at your website. And you have about 1.2 seconds. That's not scientific, but it's somewhere in there to capture them. So the very first thing is you want them to go, yeah, this is what I need. They're solving my problem. I'm going to do a few more clicks and find a little bit more about this company. So Slack is a platform for businesses and for teams to use to be able to communicate. We use that in our SBDC network to be able to communicate and share information. Their elevator pitch or their value proposition, be more productive at work with less effort. So they really kind of refine that down. Digit is a banking tool for individuals. Save money without thinking about it. MailChimp, send better email. How simple is that? But they've figured out, who their market is and who they're speaking to. Your value proposition at this point in time is going to be a little longer, and I think it will get refined. And you might have 2 value propositions for 2 markets or 5 for 5 different markets, but eventually it will get fine-tuned to something like one of these. Uber's is the smartest way to get around. So the last thing I'll talk about with the business canvas model is testing the hypothesis. So the whole concept of the business canvas model is that you're sitting down and you're filling out these blocks kind of cold. Like, I have this idea, I am ready to write the business plan, but taking it onto that canvas model, and you just kind of, like I said, cold, write down, this is what I think the value proposition is. This is who I think is going to most benefit for my customers. This is my revenue model, and going through the whole thing. So the concept of the business canvas model is not just filling that out, but it's going out and testing every block. So you're going to test that value proposition by talking to potential customers and interviewing them. And we'll talk a little bit about that in market research and how the best ways to do that is. But you're testing everything. You're also testing, who exactly your market is by maybe like reaching out and testing a different market and seeing if that would be a market for your products. You're looking at everything from your key partners, your key activities, and just making sure those are the things that are exactly your partners and the activities that you need to do. You're going to test all of it by doing research, which is how market research kind of falls into it. And we'll talk a little bit about the different kinds of research. So you just want to make sure that you're doing that. And by doing those tests and going out and talking to people, like people that teach the business canvas model will say, you want to have 100 contacts with people on all of these different squares to make sure you're on the right track. Test the market now before you test the market, in real life and maybe lose the money. I think that you're going to learn some lessons that are going to save your money before you go live with your business. You want to make sure that you accept pivots. So a lot of times you come in, if it's an invention or it's a creative idea or a new business or a new consulting type of business, or you're disrupting an industry, you're going to be very, very close to that and not want to make changes. It's your baby, right? And you've been doing a lot of research on developing this. As you're going through the business canvas model process, you want to make sure that you accept and embrace pivots. And by pivots, it might be changing the market or adding a new market or adding a new benefit to your product. It's not always a complete pivot of I'm just changing the whole idea. These are just small little pivots, but you just want to make sure that you're open-minded, going through it and kind of embracing that process and making sure that you can pivot. This is the business canvas model as you go through your business and you start in year 1, year 2. It's not a bad thing to just kind of keep going through it and going, maybe this is something that I need to change or add on to my business model, add on a new target market, or this section is great and fantastic, but it's losing me money. So just looking at those kind of things. So market research basics. When you're looking at market research, you're looking at researching and finding things out as you're doing your business planning or your business model canvas. But the basic things that you're looking at is you're researching your customer, who they are, what their demographics are, what their personality is, what are the things that they kind of do, how many, of that market or that target market is in your area. So you're really delving into the customer. You're looking at your specific market. So where is your best market? Is it 30-mile radius? Is it 60-mile radius? Is it your region, the 3 states? Is it national? A lot of times when you're looking at your market, even though you want to go national, it's smart and more accessible to start locally, to at least start in your back door or regionally, because the money to market and the money to get out nationally is a little more. So a lot of these big businesses that I even talked about in the last slide with Uber, they all started locally. They all kind of started their services locally and then just kind of went to the next state or to the next right market. So the next thing you want to look at is not only your market, but then go outside of that big picture. What's the industry like? Going to biztrends.com and seeing what trends are. Are there things that you can bring in that people are doing in California and kind of bring those in? So looking at the industry, if you're starting a coffee shop, what's that industry look like? Are there a lot of small coffee shops coming up and making money, or is it decreasing? So looking at different places to find out what the industry is doing, just so that doesn't mean, if the coffee shop industry is not doing well, that doesn't mean that yours won't do well, but you will know why it's not doing well, and you can pivot and make sure that you pay attention to those things. And you also want to look at competitors. So as you're doing this market research, you're going to be looking and delving into competitors, scoping out their websites, looking at their prices, looking at how they're doing on their websites, on their social media, and doing as much research as you can on your competitors and kind of figuring out, what is their niche and what do they do best and what can you do best, or what are they doing wrong and how can you make that better? What is your competitor advantage? So market research, it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. I think things have changed in the last, 10, 15 years because of Google, probably even longer than that. But it used to be that you would hire a market research firm and spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on getting secondary research and reports on what's going on in your particular industry. But it's become easier and easier to do this market research. And I'm going to talk about primary and secondary, but primary research, because of the business canvas model, is probably your most important research. It's just the research that you can go out and talk to people and find out that real information. Market research will just do several different things. One of them, convincing a bank or financial institution to fund your business, but it's also going to help you go through that model and make sure like I said, kind of stop you from making mistakes before you actually start the business, helping you find out certain things about your market. It will, determine if there's actually customers to support your great idea. It will provide constructive feedback from customers on things that you might not have thought about. Maybe you were solving one problem, but there's another problem that is very, very closely related, and it wouldn't be hard for you to kind of build that in. It helps to determine exactly what the market is needing, and helps to determine how your product will stand out. It's also going to help you in determining, just the management side and how you operate and how you price, how you distribute, especially by looking at, researching suppliers and researching competitors and seeing how they're doing it and how that's working. And that doesn't mean that you copy it. It might mean that you find a new way to do something. Everyone's doing it this way. I'm going to solve that problem. This will be much easier. I'm going to disrupt the market. So primary research and secondary research. Primary research, like I said, I think is the most important. You just need to get out. It's also the most uncomfortable. It's not easy to call other like businesses and ask them questions, but probably one of the most important calls to make. It might not be the one that you're competing with directly in your market, but finding a network and other mentors that will help you, might be another like business or a competitor in another state that will help you kind of look through that. So primary research is observing and interviewing. You can use your personal experience and your family experience and talk to them about, things that you need to know about your product or how they feel about your product. Talking and interviewing people in the industry, potential customers, similar businesses, like I said, suppliers, vendors, bankers, anyone that's involved in the industry is going to help you get through those blocks we talked about for Business Canvas model. One-on-one interviews with non-leading questions are the most effective. I think our comfort level as human beings, or my comfort level, is I'm going to send an email, I'm going to send a survey, and I'm going to get that information. But the most valuable information is going to come from an interview and asking why. It's not going to be coming from a set survey or set number of questions, because it's going to be one-word answers, and they're going to be kind of leading. But if you sit down with someone and have an interview with them, you can ask why, or why do you feel like that? Oh, I didn't think about that. How did that come about? So just asking and leading through that and not having the same interview every single time, I think, comes up with much better information. When you have surveys, they tend to be leading. If I'm opening up a lemonade stand in the park and I ask people if they like lemonade, they know I want them to answer yes, so they probably will answer yes, especially if they're family and friends. So when you have an interview, you can get deeper into that. Well, why do you like lemonade? Do you like anything else? What are their flavors? So you can get deeper into it and not kind of direct where the questions are going, and really have the opportunity to learn some things. Secondary research is also very important, and in things like finding prices and finding that industry information. What are coffee shops, or what is my industry doing in the industry right now? How is it faring? What are the trends? That's all going to come from secondary research. And the best resources for secondary research include trade associations. A lot of trade associations require memberships, but they will have basic information if you look on their website, or even give them a call on how to start your business in that industry. They'll have some basic industry information to help you out. Of course, they want you to become members after you start, so they're going to be nice to you and help you start. So look at your trade associations in that industry. Market studies, industry information. So I had said in the beginning of this section that a lot of times you would hire market research companies to help you do the research. Well, now, there are still a lot of market research companies out there doing it, and there are a lot of snippets and reports that you can just kind of find by Googling them. So you can say, what are the trends in this industry? And you'll probably come up with some articles that maybe a reputable market research company did and someone wrote a paper about. So it's much more accessible to find that information. Competitor information is totally secondary research. So going and kind of lurking on their websites, totally being comfortable with going and looking and seeing what they're doing. How are they wording things? How are they getting, so high up on a Google search? That's the best, like if you're looking at a competitor and you Google Omaha, Nebraska painters or Des Moines, Iowa painters, the ones that are coming up on top are doing something right. They're probably a really good, popular business with lots of reviews and very good content on their website. So those ones that are coming up on top are probably the ones that you want to look at and look at their websites and see how they're wording things and what are they doing and what's right, what's wrong. So competitor information just by getting on websites and also making calls, asking, like I said, maybe working with a like company that's not in your region and not a direct competitor, but someone that might be willing to talk to you. That's a hard thing to do because you feel like some people won't, or other businesses won't want to share their secrets. But the reality is most small businesses love what they do, and they're going to be very willing to have a conversation with you and help you. It's their passion, and they're happy to help people with like passions. So reach out to them. Secondary research can also come from economic forecasts, library databases. Our library in Southwest Iowa, here in Council Bluffs, Iowa, has some great business databases that we can go on. If you have a card, you can go on and use those databases and find your competitors, find potential customers if you're business to business. So you can find business lists and lots of other industry information. So make sure that you look at your library. And this is all accessible sitting at my desk. As long as I can put in my card number, I can sit at my desk and access all of that information. So make sure you look at your public library. The last biggest database or resource for secondary research is Google. You can Google anything and find great information. Some of it, sometimes you will have to vet it, make sure that it's the right information. But like I talked about before, market research companies that do research publish articles, and these things can be found. You can find articles on other companies and competitors. So making sure that you get in there and Google all of the different aspects just to see the information you can find is very, very important. So that's it for market research, and the next session will be on critical issues and decisions that you need to make in your business.